Okay, so I believe we are live. Let me welcome all of you to the All About Music digital sessions. This is the first one we're doing. And for those of you who don't know about All About Music, I feel sorry for you. It is really the industry's most inclusive music conference. And we cover all kinds of topics at the conference. We have panel discussions, workshops, etc. The All About Music digital sessions is really taking off from the feedback that we've got from all of you, saying that the workshops and master classes are of immense benefit to people. So we thought it only right to start with online sessions, especially given these lockdowns and we don't know when it's going to lift. So there is opportunity for people to learn a lot by logging into these digital sessions. Now, today we're going to kick this off with a subject that is that everyone's been talking about, and especially in today's climate, with artists sitting at home and recording, going live with a lot of music. There's always this burning question about cover versions. Are you allowed to do cover versions? Can you post them up online? Can you make videos for them? Do you need permissions to do all of this? Do you need permissions to do some of this? Whom do you get these permissions from? How much does it cost? We constantly get these questions about cover versions. So I think it's only appropriate that we break this down so that we understand what the cover version entails and how to get it out there legitimately, to ensure that you don't run problems like getting copyright strikes on your YouTube channels, because that's going to impact you. And it is necessary for any copyright owner to take action when his work is being used without a permission. So let's try and marry these requirements, first by explaining the law, and then by talking about business practices and especially how you can go about releasing legitimate cover versions so that you're all above board, you've taken your necessary permissions, and you can get on with it. So to talk about cover versions and how to go about them, we have with us today Priyanka Kimani, a very popular lawyer who deals with a lot of young independent artists especially. Priyanka is a founder of the firm Anand and Kimani. She's been very instrumental in educating a lot of artists about copyright and composers and authors about their rights, how to sign contracts, etc. So welcome, Priyanka. It's a real pleasure having you on board, and I think we're looking forward to learning a lot from you today. And very interestingly today, we also have the managing director, Asia Pacific, of the largest independent music publishing company in the world, which is Cobalt Music. Cobalt, by the way, is known to be a very artist-friendly publisher and now record label as well. Cobalt came into being because they wanted to provide transparency to composers and authors around their royalties. They've rapidly grown to representing some of the biggest songwriters in the world, including people like Dua Lipa and The Weeknd, who've recently had fantastic records out. So Simon Moore, who looks after Asia Pacific, is going to talk to us about international practices and how it's done there, and a publisher's perspective, of course. So welcome, Simon. We're delighted to have you at All About Music.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Priyanka. Thank you. So, Priyanka, let's cut to the chase immediately.
Go for it.
The law. What exactly does the Indian copyright law say about cover versions? Because when back in the day we only had physical product, it seemed to be a fairly easy system where anyone making a cover version simply sent a royalty check to the copyright owner along with an inlay card of the proposed release. They paid for the amount of copies they were pressing and released the product. Now in 2012, we had a change, an amendment to the Act, and they've got something confusing in there which says that you have to pay for 50,000 copies per year that the work is in circulation. it all sounds very complex. So will you break it down for us? Just tell us what exactly is the law for cover versions?
Okay. I think it's still sort of on the same lines. So in theory, there is a provision to obtain what we call a statutory license for cover versions. So that's under Section 31C of the Copyright Act.
So I'm going to keep interrupting you when you say things that I don't understand. So what is the statutory license? What is a statutory license?
Okay, a statutory license is something that very simply is provisioned for in the statute or by the statute, which means your Copyright Act in this case, right? Your acts are what we call as statutes in legal parlance. So the copyright law in India itself provides for a mechanism where someone who is desirous of making a cover version can obtain a license, and then there's a mechanism and certain set of rules as to how this particular license can be obtained. There are certain prerequisites, so much like you said, even before the amendment, before the 2012 amendment, if you wanted to make a cover version, you would have to seek permission from the owner, right, to send him a check along with a copy of your inlay card or artwork, correct? It's pretty much the same even now under the new scheme of statutory license for a cover version with certain minor differences. So first of all, we have now a board that needs to determine at what rate is this royalty to be paid, right? So if I want to make a cover version, I need to know how much is it that I need to pay Atul to get so that I'm able to make a cover version of a work that he owns.
So
right?
interruption again. In the old days, the Copyright Board had said it was 5% of retail price for a physical product.
Right.
So does that 5% hold today after the amendment and no new ruling by the IPAB?
So unfortunately, since the act was amended, we've not had the IPAB sit down and decide this tariff. There's an entire mechanism for the tariff itself to be decided. In theory, yes, the IPAB or the Copyright Board needs to, after considering representation from all stakeholders and keeping industry practices and tariff rates in mind, decide what a tariff or what that royalty should look like. Now let's assume that there is a tariff like that that's made available. So if that has happened, if I want to make a cover version, I need to then give notice to the owner at least 15 days before I want to make a cover version, along with me making a payment of this royalty that is payable, submitting a copy of this artwork, the inlay card, and so on and so forth. The one restriction that has been introduced now is that I cannot make a cover version of a song under this particular statutory licensing regime of a song that has released that is still within 5 years of its release. So let's say a song that releases today in 2020, I need to calculate 5 years following from the next calendar year, so 2021 to another 5 years, that's 2026. So for those 5 years, I can't avail of the statutory licensing scheme that the Copyright Act provides for. But by and large, if I'm making a cover of any other piece of work, yes, in theory, I should be able to avail of the statutory licensing benefit that the Act provides for. So that's where we stand with the law today. And when it comes to addressing your question about copies, right? Now, yes, the language is perhaps slightly confusing where it says for a minimum of 50,000 copies each year, right? But so also in a digital world, just like we had physical copies and you would sell CDs and cassettes and vinyl records and so on and so forth, think of even today when you have a stream, when you have a download, each of that is the equivalent of that physical, right? Because it is still a copy. Yes, it may not be physical, but it is a copy, which is a physical equivalent in the digital ecosystem that we live in. So to that extent, I think that it is technology, the provision or the scheme of the Act and the statutory licensing mechanism is technology agnostic.
Right. So I'm hearing two things over here. One is that the rate that we're talking about, where the royalties that I need to pay, are in the region of 5, 8, 10%. It's not some massive 50% of everything that I earn.
So yes, so I'm not going to validate a rate simply because this has evolved more from industry practice, as you and I know. The law hasn't prescribed a set rate; it has a mechanism to arrive at a rate. And as you're aware, over a period of time, through industry consensus, we've come together and decided different rates from time to time, and everyone decides to respect and follow those rates. But you're right that the entire purpose of that statutory license is to ensure that the rate is minimal, is something that's affordable, easily payable, it's achievable. So it's not supposed to be, it's not an astronomical number that someone looks at and says that, listen, this is absolutely impossible. In fact, the Act goes a step further to say that in respect of certain languages, the board even has flexibility to reduce the rate and decide a minimum. So there is enough flexibility as far as that pricing is concerned.
Okay, so let's just quickly ask Simon. In the international market, so we are talking about a rate here. I'm hearing a 5% rate because I know there was a ruling like that in India at some point of time. Internationally, are these rates any different? I mean, do they go up to 20% because I'm doing a Michael Jackson song, or do they stay in the same realm of 5, 10, 8%?
As all, no, they are in that same. They're in that same ballpark. The rates are no different to the rate for any recording. So the publishing rate paid on any song is the same, and it's around that 8 or 10%. And that's a global standard usually.
And again, these complex words that Priyanka uses, your statutory. So is that something that again is like an automatic license in the more developed markets or markets where there's no confusion over this?
Yes. So I think that potentially in the West that we have looked upon cover recordings and looked to make the process a little easier and more straight ahead. So in terms of cover recording in Australia, as soon as a song has been recorded once by the original songwriters or an artist who is the original songwriter, so the original songwriters are given permission for that first recording, anyone can record a cover version. And then you don't need permission for that. Then if you're going to release that cover version or to put that cover version on the streaming services or up on YouTube, you can do that, and the license is given automatically by our local mechanical rights society. And then money is paid back to the songwriters of that version. So I think you've got two very interesting things here. One, I think there's a real opportunity for artists to record covers, particularly to grow their career on YouTube and platforms similar to that. But we have to make sure that the original songwriters get paid. And so I think that in place in Australia and other Western countries, and certainly it sounds very similar in India as well, is a mechanism to ensure that the songwriters are getting paid. Because I think there's two opportunities here that you're talking about. One, for artists to come along and record a cover and boost their career and attract new fans, and to earn some money off the recording copyright. But there's also an opportunity for the songwriters to have their songs that have been released previously recorded as a cover version. And that is an opportunity and a service that music publishers provide. So more often than not, for most of our songwriting clients, we'll be very keen and to find opportunities for their songs to be recorded by other artists, particularly significant artists. And that's a service that a publisher provides.
When you say this, Simon, that's when I'm going to talk to you about publishing, because then I've got my publishing hat on. All right. Okay. So I'm going to run back to Priyanka with my natural look. So Priyanka, just coming back to the law again, so for people to understand, so you're saying there's one right I require to record and release the song.
Yes. Correct? Cover version.
A cover version. So that's the mechanical right that I'm looking for. The mechanical license. Then I need to make a video, because now everyone's going to YouTube and watching videos. Is this a statutory thing again, or what do I do now?
So, I'm glad you brought this up, because the one big clarification for everyone is that the statutory license that you have for cover versions doesn't contemplate a situation where there is an audio and a video, right? It's only for sound recordings. Now, coming to the YouTube world that we live in today, or just the social media world that we live in, of course, you're making a cover version, and more often than not, it is accompanied by a video, correct? Now, when we do that, it is what we call in industry parlance synchronization, right? Because you're synchronizing an audio with a visual. Now, that particular right is not a right that is today with an IPRS, right? That right is with the original rights holder, because simply put, it is the right to make another film or a sound recording based on the work. So to be able to, if you are going to have a cover version with a video, simply put, you are going to need to go to the record label, to the publisher, and seek express license from them, and then go to an IPRS as well. So there are two entities that you're approaching to seek a license when you have a video that you're making and putting up on YouTube or any other social media platform.
Right. So one is to get a mechanical license, which means
That's
I can reproduce the recording. I get a synchronization from the original copyright owner, that is the publisher.
Correct.
Society does not govern synchronization rights, so you have to go to a copyright owner for that.
Those rights, correct.
And then I want to put it out on these streaming platforms, as Simon was mentioning. You want to put it out on the streaming platforms, and you want to sell it, etc. So where do I get that right from? Is that something that comes to me automatically once I've done the synchronization, or do I need to seek that right as well?
You would, because then you're communicating the works to the public, which means that then you need a communication to the public license, which is what the PRO will grant you.
That is the IPRS.
Correct.
Okay. So basically, if I'm understanding it correctly, I need 3 licenses. I need a mechanical license, I need a public performance license, I need a synchronization license.
Correct.
If the copyright owner, the publisher, is a member of IPRS, I can get my mechanical and public performance license from there. But for this video, for the synchronization, I need to go to the record label itself.
That's right.
Original
the
publisher.
But yes, in our country, you have the entity that controls both. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Perfect.
And that is for something that is a faithful cover.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now back to Simon. All right. So Simon, now let's talk about something else that we see very often, and especially in the coronavirus lockdown situation. There are a lot of songs where people have taken a very popular song and put their own coronavirus lyrics to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they've made parodies, they've done interesting things with them, and some of these have become very popular. You get a lot of shares on WhatsApp, especially. People forwarding these songs. How does it work over there as a publisher? That must be a nightmare for you.
Well, I think Atul, generally worldwide, if you as the artist records a cover and you change the lyrics or change the melody or change something substantial material about the song, that you need to get permission from the original copyright owners. Now that could be the songwriters if they are unpublished, or the publisher if they are signed to a publisher. Now there is, however, a case where a song could be considered a parody, and as a parody, you as the recording artist are able to record and without permission, and you're able to to release that song, but not make money out of it. So you could potentially put it up on YouTube if you had the right synchronization license as a parody. But if you were to put it on streaming services and earn money off that, or monetize on YouTube, then you would have to get permission. However, generally, when you're recording covers, if you take the rule of thumb that if you change the lyric or any material part of that song when recording it, you need permission from the original copyright owners.
So I think, Priyanka, we call that an adaptation.
So I was going to say, it's pretty much identical in India as well. If you're going to adapt and make changes to the original piece of work, then yes, you're going to need permission from the rights holder.
Yeah. In publishing, in the publishing world, we may also have a more standard situation where a song is adapted or into another language, and therefore the lyrics would be generally changed. They could be quite different, and some of those you would definitely need permission for that, and you would also give that person who's adapting those lyrics a share of the song. And that's another reason why you need permission as well. And then you would seek that permission, again, from the copyright owners or the songwriters. And sometimes that share of that song for those adapted new lyrics can be standard and set by the local society, PRO, APRS possibly, or APRA in our country, or it could be negotiated between yourself and the original songwriters. I think
that's very interesting. So there is a situation where lyrics can be, the shares can be determined by the PROs?
In some countries, the share of for an adaptation, the share is dictated. And if you think in terms of copyright of a song, you've got two parts to the song. You've got the track and the lyric. And so generally we like to think that the lyric is 50% and the track and melody is 50%. So in certain countries, the local songwriter society will set standards, perhaps minimum standards for what that share would be or what that adaptation is worth of the lyric part of the copyright. Again, it could be negotiated directly with the songwriters, but certainly you have to give a minimum in certain territories. In France, for instance, with their local society, they set a minimum. So you can't, the person doing the adaptation will always get at least that share. And I believe it's about 16% of 50%.
So, which leads me to the question about mashups. We see a lot of mashups, especially on YouTube, but I don't see too many mashups on the audio stores. Why is that? Is there a difference somehow?
Again, yes, it's a more difficult license to obtain, a more difficult mechanical license to obtain, and you need permission again from the original copyright owners for a mashup. Essentially because you are creating a new work or a new song out of that, and the songwriting shares would change. I think the golden rule for recording a cover and getting permission and putting it up and monetizing it without problems is to credit the original songwriters with their original shares. Don't claim a share of that song. And when you're getting the license, say for a physical release or the automatic license, you get that by registering that song under those songwriters. And so I think anytime you might change the lyrics and want to claim a share of the songwriting, you would need permission. So I think that's a really great sort of rule of thumb. If you're changing something and you're claiming a share, you need permission. If you're just crediting songwriters as they are, then you're more likely to have an easy path to being able to utilize your recording.
So for our market, I think it would probably make sense to be telling people who are listening in that if you want to do a straight cover, it is easier than trying to do an adaptation or a mashup where you need to negotiate the new writer's shares. And we have this strange thing, Priyanka, you must have noticed this in India when they do a remake or a remix, as they call it, in the credits, it says additional music and additional lyrics, which is actually incorrect because the lyrics then get split between the original writer and the new writer. Right. You can't say additional lyrics because you're actually changing the lyrics. So there is, yes, an element of an addition, but these are, they're not superfluous. They're integral to the song. So they should be credited correctly, right? Correct. Anyway, so So again, to reiterate what we were saying, if you want to do a cover, you want to do a cover legitimately and you want to put it up on YouTube, because that's where everyone goes, seek your mechanical and performance permissions from the IPRS.
Correct.
For labels that are members of the IPRS. The synchronization right you will get directly from the label, that is the copyright owner, publisher, label, whatever you call him. So you need to go to two entities. If the copyright owner is not a member of IPRS, then you get all three permissions from him directly. But if you do it without permission, Priyanka, what happens?
So I want to simplify this. You're right. I think taking on from what Simon also said, the general rule of thumb is that, and I'm saying this specifically as far as people uploading cover versions along with videos on YouTube are concerned, because Atul, as you and I know, I think we get a lot of those questions day in and day out, right? So the general rule of thumb is that you need permission, right? To summarize it, yes, mechanical and public performance, you will go to your local PRO, which is IPRS. For synchronization, you will go directly to the publisher. Now, one of the most common things that I hear very often is, oh, but I'm not monetizing my video on YouTube, so therefore I don't need license or I don't need permission. Or so many other people are putting out covers. How is it that only mine has gotten struck down, or why do only I specifically need to seek permission? To that, my response is very simple. You can jump a signal 10 times. Just because you didn't get caught the previous 9 times doesn't mean that it was okay, right? It's pretty much the same logic when it comes to our YouTube covers. So just because someone didn't got away with it does not necessarily mean that that was okay for you to do. So yes, you do need a license. B, please make sure whether or not you're monetizing it is not the test. Whether or not you're giving credit on screen to the original authors is not the test. And lastly, a lot of people also misunderstand that I need to get permission from the author of the works. So there's a difference between the author and the owner, right? You need permission from the person who owns the rights, which is not necessarily the author. In fact, more often than not, as we know in India, the author would have parted with his rights in favor of either the production house, who's then passed it to the record label. So more often than not, yes, the rights would have to be sought by the record label. The consequence of not doing any of this is that you run the risk of your cover being struck down on YouTube. And then we follow the entire mechanism on what happens when you have a strike on YouTube. You go through the process of, filing a counter notification or going through a retraction. And worst case scenario, if you have more than 3 strikes, you risk losing your entire YouTube channel. So
let's just stay with this for a minute, because we do get a lot of people asking us, what exactly is the rule at YouTube? So if I get 1 strike because I've done a cover that didn't belong, I haven't taken permission for, does it get taken down immediately, automatically?
So I'll walk you through the process, at least to the best of my experience in having dealt with certain takedowns that we've faced in the past or have had to issue. So YouTube, you would get a strike for any infringing activity. Now, whether that is by way of a cover version, some licenses are missing, whatever is infringing. Once you get a strike, the strike has happened because the person, the rights holder, has actually filed an entire copyright notice or a complaint with YouTube, setting out their case, explaining why they feel that a particular piece of content on YouTube is infringing. After they've scrutinized it, will the video get struck down? When it is struck down, yes, it is taken down. Now, a strike is valid for 90 days. So chances are, at some point, maybe during those 90 days, the rights holder has decided to not pursue it, the strike will automatically expire and your video could come back on. The other thing that happens during those 90 days is that if you feel that, okay, maybe this is, I didn't realize I needed permission for this. You talk to someone like Atul and realize that, no, I should have gotten permission. This is the right way of doing it. You could reach out to the person who complained, to the rights holder, explain, figure out if you can come to some sort of resolution and request for a retraction, that they retract the notice or withdraw the notice. Option 2 is that you feel that no, I did actually get permission, or you have another explanation as to why you feel that that particular piece of content does not infringe the rights and the notice is wrongly issued. You can file a counter notification explaining that to YouTube. So these are a few things that happens as part of this takedown mechanism. But if at the end of this entire if there is a particular channel that is consistently uploading infringing content, and there are more than if there are 3 strikes or more, YouTube is going to could reserves their right to shut down the entire channel. You may also, in fact, in certain extreme situations, not be allowed to have a new channel again on YouTube. So infringement is taken seriously because it is the only way to protect somebody's rights in the digital ecosystem.
Fabulous. So that should make it clear to everyone that you risk a lot simply because you decided to go ahead and not take permission to do your video of a cover version that you created. So it's always better to take licenses, right?
And I think just to add to that, Atul, one of the other, again, sort of maybe frustration points or pain points for a lot of people is, but how do we get this permission? I get that question all the time, that yes, I want to do the right thing. How do I go about doing it? Like we've identified that really you're dealing with 2 entities, IPRS and then the publisher. IPRS is fairly simple. They have a website. For those of you who've not already seen it, it's fairly simple. Everything is online. You can Google it. They have tariffs. They have various details and contact persons that you can reach out to. For publishers, yes, sometimes some of them have information that is freely available, but you're going to have to make that effort to reach out, send an email with your request, and hopefully someone will get back to you. But you're going to have to take that step yourself proactively.
Okay. Simon, I'm going to ask you now, purely from a publishing thing. So I think Priyanka has explained the law, etc. quite well. The digital business has made artists out of people like me, right? So I can do stuff, I can upload it from my computer, bang onto the platforms, here we go. Is this actually a great business for a publisher?
Yes, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, I mean, for instance, with Cobalt, we have staff in all of our offices who are looking for those opportunities to have our songwriters' songs either recorded for the first time or recorded by other artists as a cover. And it's certainly can be very lucrative and goes to create a enduring and long-term income for songwriters. I wouldn't mind just saying, going back on a point that Priyanka made before, just in terms, if you've got there's maybe a third option in terms of strikes with YouTube, whereby if you have your own YouTube channel, you're putting up your own songs, and someone, for instance, is claiming those songs, and you're finding you have a strike against your name, against your site, then you can, but it's your channel, you can request that channel to be whitelisted by YouTube. And by whitelisting, essentially, it blocks claims because you provide proof of ownership. And so that by doing that on your own YouTube channel, you'll be able to continue to put up your own music, because it does happen, and it's one of the great complaints with the YouTube and the Content ID system is that works, songs or clips get claimed erroneously. And or get claimed when you do in fact have permission. And so going back via either the copyright owner or direct to YouTube, if you're the copyright owner, to ask for your channel to be whitelisted is one way to address that. I think there's another interesting thing, because I know it's a very big phenomenon where artists are recording cover versions in their bedrooms, but they're doing it live to YouTube. Often in those situations, as a publisher, we will look to claim those, or societies will also look to claim those. And YouTube provides a facility whereby you can either take down, track, or monetize. In the majority of times where we find Cobalt finds our work being recorded and uploaded as UGC, which is user-generated content, we will allow that to exist on YouTube and just monetize it. I think as the artist who's doing it, sometimes if you're doing a cover, you might find that a publisher comes along and claims that and monetizes it. Where if you had monetized it, the publisher would potentially look to take that down.
There's a good distinction that we should make over here between UGC and non-UGC content, because Priyanka and I were talking a while ago, and I could be a very famous artist, but if I'm not monetizing the content, if I'm singing a cover of somebody else, does that get treated as UGC if I'm not monetizing it?
It will get treated as UGC. That would be my understanding of it. Priyanka, would that be? You would also think that?
Yeah, so I think it also depends on the platform, right? It's slightly tricky. So Atul and I were chatting about all of these Instagram and Facebook live sessions that a lot of artists have been doing, right? Especially during this lockdown, everyone to keep up connectivity with their audiences or to keep entertainment going have been tuning in and creating a lot of live streams of their music. Now, in a situation like that, I don't see why it should not be construed as pure user-generated content, right? Because it's just me as an artist tuning in. There's no commercialization. I'm just wanting to find a way to communicate my music to my fans, the community of people that follows me. So yes, I think I tend to agree that it should be UGC. And broadly speaking, something like that would get covered under a blanket license that each platform tries to put in place with rights holders and PROs in different parts of the world, right? And I commonly use this as an example to a lot of artists that routinely will come and ask me questions. So it's very simple. Sometimes when we're checking out somebody else's Instagram story and there's a music sticker, very often it'll say that this music is not available in your region, right? And this explanation is very simple. That's because at the back end, perhaps the platform has not been able to conclude their license in respect of those works with the rights holder and with the PRO, or it has expired, but definitely there's not this necessary set of rights in place. And I think that just sort of goes to reinforce what we've been talking through this whole session, that for every type of activity, someone in that chain is responsible to make sure it is licensed. Whether it's the user or the platform may vary from case to case, but I think it just goes to sort of validate the fact that no activity can happen in an unauthorized manner, and somebody somewhere is responsible to put a license in place.
Sure. So just coming off that, Priyanka, so there's a very interesting point here where I believe a lot of publishers and labels use fingerprinting to identify their content running on the platform. Now, how would somebody sitting in a publisher's office or in a record label know whether a certain video, or let's say there's a show reel up there with a couple of videos, there are 10 videos and 2 videos in there belong to me. How do I know whether they've got a license from IPRS, not got a license from IPRS? Is there any way of double checking? Is there a mechanism by way you can cross-check before you issue a strike on the channel?
So, Atul, sorry, just so that I understand your question correctly, are we talking of instances where there is a live performance that has happened, I have recorded it and put it up on my channel? Or are you saying, okay, so, and again, this is something that everyone brings up, that, when I did the live performance, I did take an IPRS license for the live performance. Now I have recorded that and I'm putting the same thing on my Facebook or YouTube page. So going back to what we explained earlier, that then is not just a live performance, because you've taken that live performance. Your IPRS license covered just the actual live performance that took place, right? Now this is a recording that you're putting up. So it's not covered by your IPRS license? And to all of, I know that there are lots of questions also coming in, lots of live comments asking the same question. So no, just because you had an IPRS license, when you did that live event or live concert, when you put it up on YouTube, put a recording of that up on YouTube or on your Facebook and separately look at monetizing that, it's not covered under the same IPRS license.
Okay, so I think that's fairly clear. And I think, again, to reiterate, if you're going live, it's still not something that you should try and do automatically without licenses. It's as simple as this. If you're using somebody else's work, be respectful and try and get a license for it, because if Atul Churamani started singing your songs, I'm sure you'd get mighty upset. Not just because of the way I sang them, but because I'd be doing something without your permission or without taking your publisher's permission. Simon, one other question about videos. Since now it's, we've established that if you make a video, you need to take a license. Videos normally don't work on a royalty share. There's a synchronization fee, a one-time fee that is charged by a publisher for a video. Now, if I came to you, how much would I need to pay to do a video? If I'm an unsigned artist, I'm releasing music on my own. Is it very expensive? Is it very difficult?
I think no, it's not. It's very easy. Again, you're approaching the rights owner, which in this case would be the publisher who would offer the synchronization license, and that would often be a very small fee, because it would also be seen as a promotion and a way for the publisher to maximize the royalty income for the songwriters of the original song. No, it's something that a publisher is well set up to do. We try to make that very easy, and essentially we want the artist to be able to make a video and put it up and use that video and have greater success with that song. So I think if you always think about the publisher trying to maximize the opportunities for the songwriters, trying to make it as easy as possible for the artists to record a cover version or record a song and create the promotional tools to do that, as a video clip could be seen as a promotional tool. And I think, if you're looking at, if you need to find who owns a particular song, then I think approach your local society like IPRS. You can talk to them about obtaining a mechanical license, and at the same time, they will let you know who the copyright owner is. So I think that's probably one of the best ways to find out. Use your resource. I think often local songwriter societies are overlooked. They want their songwriters' songs recorded and as covers and put out there and exploited as well. So, often the local songwriting society is very helpful and a great resource.
So is this something that a publisher would do? So if I'm an artist, I'd rather spend time creating my music than running after people to get a license. So is this something a publisher would do for an artist?
Well, we would do it on behalf of the songwriter, and we would then go out and seek. We could actively seek or make suggestion to artists to record certain songs, and we do that on a regular basis. That's a part of the business model of a music publisher, and therefore part of the business model of a songwriter who is building a long career. And you build a long career in music by accumulating your songs, having those songs recorded, you recording them, having them played on the radio, having them up on YouTube, and that generates an ongoing income. And publishing from that point of view is incredibly important for any songwriter. So it's something. It's a very important area for the songwriter to make sure they have right and they're credited, and it's a very important area for the artist to make sure the songwriters are getting paid.
Excellent. All right. Is there anything else, any other point that either of you would like to make when it comes to advising young artists about doing covers? Have we missed anything? Anything you think is important? Because
So
if not, then we can ask for some
take some
questions. Yeah,
questions.
we can take some questions if there are any in the house. I hope some people are watching. Otherwise, it's just been the three of us having a chat.
No, I think going by the live comments, there's a separate panel going on right there. So no, I think we have an audience, fortunately.
Okay, so there's a question from Essas Dadwala saying making cover videos on YouTube may lead to copyright infringement, but using original song used on TikTok does not lead to anything. Why is it so? Priyanka, this is
I
your
can,
way. Oh, okay, Simon, you're
Go
going
for
for it.
it.
Go
Go
for
for
it,
it.
Simon. You're
well,
closer to China than we are.
well, look, I can answer that from the point of view that the licenses that have been put in place with TikTok incorporate a synchronization right, and for the purpose of creating the short, the short video content that is so popular on TikTok. And so essentially that platform is licensed for the majority of music from publishers. It's not all songs though. And TikTok does have some issues in certain territories where they are,
Not fully licensed.
not fully licensed, exactly what you were saying before, Priyanka. But generally, and Cobalt licenses TikTok, and so generally for all of our songwriters and their works that you can, as someone creating UGC, you can use one of our songs and put that up on TikTok.
So I'll just roll back a little bit. So these platforms, when they come in, actually there is a period of time when they are not licensed by the PROs, and we saw that very definitely in the case of YouTube when they started. And YouTube is the biggest, and has been the biggest for a long time. It took a while for the licenses to fall in place. So to answer the question that Ehsan was asking, if they don't have that license today, if TikTok doesn't have that license today, they will tomorrow. They're already in discussion with the industry, and these licenses will happen sooner rather than later. Okay, next question. It vanished. We can't see the question. Okay, Morjo.
If someone doesn't
How
mash up,
difficult or easy would it be if someone does a mashup involving 3 or more songs from all different labels? Simon, go for it.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I think that could end up potentially being very difficult to clear.
I agree. I second that.
Yeah, I think often when you hear these mashups or hear them on YouTube or on some kind of streaming platform, they are unapproved. Often, back in the day when it was only vinyl in clubs or CDs in clubs, people used to do mashups and play them in clubs. They were essentially unlicensed. If you want to release a mashup and earn income off it, put it on Spotify or put it up on YouTube, then you do need permission. But you're not only dealing, if you're dealing with 3 different master recordings, then you need to see each of those master owners. So it's potentially 3 different labels. And at least 3 different songwriters, which could be 3 different publishers minimum. In terms of today's songwriting, where I think the average number of songwriters on a song is at least 5 or 6, you could be seeing a lot of people, and it could be very difficult. So, I think you need to be careful when you're doing a mashup. If you're just having a bit of fun, understand that it's probably not licensed or approved. But if you're going to make money off it and you want it to go up and stay up, you need to get approval, and that could take some time.
Well, Simon, our biggest drawback as far as the publishing business is concerned is that the labels are the publishers. It's also our biggest advantage, because then you get a one-window clearance for the master and the publishing.
Yes.
Okay, Morja, I hope that answers your question. Can we move to the next one? Kinjal, hi Kinjal, how are you?
Atul, I'm just going to turn my light on.
Sure.
We're energy saving here in Australia. 1 second.
Okay, go for it. I can take this one in the meanwhile, though.
All right.
Okay, so hey Kinjal, I think we dealt with this, but basically what we're saying is that your IPRS license that you took for your live event covered only your live event. It would not extend to you separately recording it and then exploiting the recording of that live event. That's a separate license, and that's why you've been getting those strikes on your YouTube channel. Again, the other thing is, like I said before, whether or not you monetize the video is not the test for whether or not you need a license. Just an explanation saying, oh, but I'm not monetizing it is not sufficient justification to you not having sought a license. So that doesn't help, and it's probably why you're still seeing those strikes on your YouTube channel.
Okay. And hi, Ravindra. Hi, Ravindra. How are you? HMV released a song by Surinder Kaur, folk song, traditional lyrics. Now you release it, and HMV claims copyright. How does Saregama or others claim copyright of a folk song when the artist never gave digital rights?
This is
Okay,
this is you.
There's more than one question in that question. But I think this is a good question for Simon to answer as a publisher, because there are traditional works which are claimed by publishers. So what happens in those situations? Because we see a lot of works being registered at the societies which credit traditional, but the fact that they are up there registered at the society means they are earning royalties probably. If you could please handle that.
So I can give this an answer from my understanding of Western law. So traditional songs or traditional lyrics, to me, would mean that they are out of copyright and sit in the public domain. Now, that would mean if someone that you're allowed to record that song. Christmas carols, Western Christmas carols are often a really good example of this. And so if you wanted to do your own version of Christmas Carol, put it up, you could own that. Now, in the copyright in Australia, when you record a song that's in public domain, or a traditional song, you can claim a share of that for the arrangement. And like being a songwriter, it's like a songwriting share, but it's a songwriting share for the arrangement. It is not 100% of the song, but it is you can claim some copyright in the songwriting or the arranging and own part of that. And that's certainly how it works in Australia. I'm not sure if does that in any way answer this question. This is a really long question. Priyanka, do you want to pick it up from there?
Okay, so I'll come in here as well. I agree with Simon. So there is a claim that's made on arrangement. My understanding is that it's 20% of an original. So if you had an original that earned 100, a cover for the arrangement, you'll get 20. You also have to remember that a lot of folk material, traditional material, is what was. So there's a lot of verse, there's a lot of poetry that is set to music. So, for example, Damadam Mast Kalandar as a song, there's a lyric that everyone composes. The composition might not be identical. So there are two elements to it. So the works, the lyrics are traditional. The composition might actually be a new composition by a composer. So there are many different scenarios, and your question would fall under the one Simon was talking about, where the arrangement is being claimed.
Yes.
I hope we've answered that. Okay, let's move on. No more questions. Is that what we're saying? Next. Okay.
Okay.
We do have another one. Okay, Neeta Charya. Hi, Neeta. I do live sessions with artists on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and various Indian artists. I don't save the live session. Do I still need to procure rights? I think
Okay.
Priyanka addressed that, but Priyanka, go for it again.
Yeah, so Neeta, again, I'm hoping that when you say live sessions, you mean that you're just sort of streaming these sessions on Facebook and Instagram live, so long as that there is no commercial activity attached to it, right? When I say that, let's say that there is no, it's not a ticketed live session where you're saying that, okay, if you want to tune in at 9 p.m. and watch these artists live on my Instagram and Facebook page, then you need to go book with Book My Show or Paytm, or so long as there's no brand associated with you doing these live sessions, you do not need any additional license. And like we said earlier, hopefully the platform has a license in place for such user-generated content. But the minute you have some sort of commercial activity attached to it, if you take a closer look at a lot of community guidelines that even Facebook and Instagram have, it's literally a part of their terms of use. It would not fall within the purview of their license, and for that you may specifically need to seek a license from the rights holder as well as from IPRS.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, last question, I believe. Let's do it. Okay, Krishan Kandang, I think if common mechanism is developed for digital platforms to certify, pre-check the UGC or copyright content before it's put on platforms like YouTube, etc. for monetization, it would help dissuade subscribers who put content of others under their channel. Now here we go into the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Who wants to do this one? Simon?
Well, look, I would say that I think that's a space that we're heading towards.
Yeah.
Is the filtering of unlicensed clips or songs or recordings that are going to go up on YouTube. I think Europe's kind of leading the way in this. I think that is a good thing for creators, songwriters, and everyone in general, because we need this content to be licensed. We need it to be licensed fairly, and we need songwriters and creators and artists all to be paid fairly. But I think that is something that is we're moving towards in the future, and I think Europe's leading the way for the world there. Yeah. Priyanka, you're probably in a better position.
No, I completely second what you're saying, Simon. I think yes, this is ideally where we would all love to see ourselves moving towards. But whilst we're working in that direction in general, and all of us together towards that common direction, I think it's still going to take some time before we're able to put something effectively in place to see this become reality. Right. But yes, we all share the same sentiment.
We are all part of the music business. Well, okay, so I think we're going to call this a wrap now. Okay. I must thank you, Simon. Thank you so much. I know it's late for you in Australia. Priyanka, thanks so much once again. And Priyanka, you've done a great job on 3 sessions now, educating people about cover versions. I hope it's been helpful. And we will be doing more all about music digital sessions. We're looking at trying to do one every week. So we'll all see you again possibly next week. And thank you again, people.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye. Okay, so as I said, that's a wrap, and hopefully it's been a good session for you. You've learned a bit, and hope to see you next week. Thank you.